Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the dev server for War Thunder in Update Fire and Ice. It's time to have a look at a new Swedish vehicle which is coming into the game. The J34, which is just a hunter, is coming in for the Swedish. It is slightly different compared to the other hunters that we have in the game. It's kind of a middle ground, I suppose, between stuff like the EVGA and also the standard hunter, and a little bit worse than the F6, which is obviously at a higher BR. The J34 is very similar to what you've seen before. It has the Rolls-Royce Avon Mark 115, which doesn't have an afterburning thrust, but has a decent amount, 3,470 kgf on it. And the other parts of this machine are just made of fuel, and of course the guns. The J34 has access to 4 30mm Aiden cannons with 600 rounds of ammunition, meaning that you can generally do pretty well over the setup when it comes to the amount of damage you can do with the guns. You know, they're not actually bad at ground pounding either. Once the battle is over and there's only like one person left on, you know, the enemy team and you want to ground pound, the 30mm do tear up quite a lot of stuff, and since the burst mass on this plane is pretty good, you'll be able to annihilate stuff quite nicely. What is odd about the machine, though, is where it is in the tech tree. So you have the Vampire, which is the new Finnish plane, the BF-109G2, which is a new Finnish plane, the Fokker D-21, which is a new Finnish plane. You're going to have a Buffalo here, which is a new Finnish plane. Then you're going to have a MiG-21 BIS here, which is going to be a Finnish plane. And then you have the J34, which is a Swedish plane. Surely this machine should be in another part of the tech tree. Maybe over here between the J32 and the J35, or between the J29 and the J32B. It just seems a little bit odd that they've put it here. Obviously, it's just because of the fact that it makes more sense from a research point of view. Maybe not as much sense from a general look point of view, but that's completely fine. There is a bunch of other vehicles also being added to Finland. I'll probably make a specific video talking about them anyway, going through them. So the J34 being a new one added, and also having the wonderful RB24s to it, being a 9.3, means that it has a little bit of an extra string to its bow. The RB24s, if you don't know them, they are AIM-9Bs. So they're some of the worst missiles in the game, but at the same time, at least it has some missiles, compared to other vehicles around the same BR which don't have anything. You can also get air targets, ground targets, or stealth targets on the belts, which will help it out quite a lot. And you get the EFS modification, which is quite good. So even though this isn't a premium, it's probably won't be too hard to grind because there's not a lot of modifications on it. So once you get one of the modifications, it will have quite a difference on its general use. And one of the problems with it has the AN/APG-30 radar, which is quite nice. One of the problems that it has, though, is it doesn't have any other secondary weapons apart from the RB-24. So you are stuck with this plane in being a dogfighter or an air-to-air fighter. And right now, in 9.7, 9.3, 10.0, 9.0, unless you're like down-tiered, you're going to have a super rough time in that role with this thing. It doesn't have access to any countermeasures. The speed of the Hunter used to be one of its big things, but nowadays you have stuff like the MiG-21 F-13 at the same BR. You also have stuff like the J72, which everybody seems to forget about at the same BR. And you have stuff such as the MiG-19s and all of these vehicles that can easily face this. The reason why the FGA-9 went down is because it got bullied, and it got bullied hard when it came to the game. The J34, I wouldn't be surprised if it's any different. I think it will really struggle in the general metas that are around. And that's just literally because of the fact that 9.0 to 10.0 in War Thunder right now is a hellscape for a lot of aircraft. You need very good specific points to be very useful in that area, and unfortunately the J34 doesn't have access to them. It struggles in a lot of the different ways. Like it does have access to a decent amount of stuff on it, but the major issue with it is that it doesn't have any ways of defending itself. there is a lot of vehicles in this game where its main prominent way of defending itself is through speed, and that doesn't work if your meta BR that you generally play at is higher than you or at your same BR. If with the Hunter there is a lot of very strong and very good aircraft, like you have access to quite a decent amount of different vehicles and quite a decent amount of vehicles which can just kind of outdo it very aggressively, and because of that fact it's going to have a really tough time of kind of staying alive. 10.3 is a really strong meta BR right now. 9.7 is also insanely good. They did shake up the meta though more recently, so maybe over the next little bit this thing will actually have more of a defined place at its BR, but my guess is it won't. My guess is it'll still struggle. It will generally have a pretty rough time, but I suppose we'll have to see what goes on with it. There's a few planes that I don't really vibe with too much when it comes to War Thunder and the Swedish tech tree. I'm not huge into stuff like the J29s, but other people can make it work. So maybe for me, maybe this is just an aircraft that just doesn't really work for me. Maybe it works for other people, maybe they can get it done, and maybe the matchmaking around it is quite nice, and maybe it does okay. And that really is something that will make this thing either, you know, sink or swim. So hopefully it swims, but at least from my point of view, I'm not sure it will. As always, hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Forge, Siegebreak, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, and also Sem Arslan, Wilkski, Uncle Bean, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.